Hello and welcome into episode 468 of the Steel Cage podcast. My name is Derek Montilla, occasionally known as your mayor of Reseda, California, and I am joined once again by a couple of people who may or may not turn on me before the end of this episode. First, we got our guy joining us for the first time ever, Dave, with hashtag beat up John Cena. Totally understandable. Welcome to the podcast, Dave. Glad to have you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. And I'm super excited to be here. Nice to finally meet you, Derek. You know, I've been homies with Josh for a little bit now, and
Right.
I'm excited to talk to you guys today.
We are going to be in Las Vegas together. Is that right?
You know, I'm here now, so
it's too early. It's too early, bro. I like the vibes though.
Yeah. No, I really want to go, but I'm not gonna make it. You know, just gonna be a little tough on my wallet is all.
Yeah.
But
It's gonna be tough on a lot of people's wallets. Let me tell you, we were looking at those tickets already, and they are a nightmare. There's a good chance Josh and I are going to spend a lot of time at Joey Janela related events. But speaking of Josh, joining us, of course, is the founder and proprietor of the Steel Cage, Mr. Joshua Schlag.
Hey, for those who are not watching the video version of this podcast, I gave a little rock throat slit signal. That was probably one of the things that has been on my mind the most in the last week or so. Is like who did not teach The Rock how to properly do the whole throat slit motion.
It's a
really
weird,
awkward.
It's a weird, awkward thing, and a lot of people are talking about it, but more people are talking about the related events that occurred in regards to that throat slit, Josh, and that is the John Cena heel turn that we have been waiting 20 years for. We how many Steel Cage podcasts did we do, Josh, talking about the value of a John Cena heel turn? It's amazing.
It happened. It finally happened. It was a thing that we and everybody else were like, it's just never gonna happen. What they wouldn't do that. They're John Cena's not gonna be that fuck them kids guy,
Yeah,
but he is.
Yeah,
he
but
is.
He is that fuck them kids guy. I love my favorite genre of TikTok video now is small children crying over the John Cena heel turn. It fuels me for some reason. It fills me up and it makes me feel good about myself, but it's only because, Dave, I love to see children cry. No, it's because we knew the impact this would have, and this is exactly the kind of thing we knew John Cena would be turning would do. It's on ESPN. My local news was talking about it. It was a segment that everybody loved and saw on the Daily Show where Jon Stewart compared global politics to what happened with John Cena and The Rock. It was great. It was great, and it's one of those things wrestling needed to kind of pop out and become the not just a thing that happened that people are talking about, but the thing that happened that everyone was talking about.
Yeah, definitely. I totally understand for the kids because I was there. I'm sure you guys were too, but I'm laughing right now, obviously, as an adult, and I'm getting a ton of enjoyment. But I remember because for me, when I was a kid, it was Hulk Hogan, right? That was that's what was going on back in the day, right? So I remember very vividly how much I was sad and angry. I could not believe, I'm not kidding you. You can ask anybody in my family. When I was a kid, I would run around the house doing the whole,
the pose and
putting, trying to hear out my family. Hey, Dave, it's dinner time. I'd be so I get it. I was crushed. And I went to school the next day and I remember talking with my classmates dude, I still don't believe it happened, and I imagine now I wasn't crying, but it was that level. It was that level though.
And it was because of the commitment to it afterwards, right? I was 14 or 15 years old. I remember because I moved to Puerto Rico wearing this hat, coincidentally enough, with my dad, the summer between my freshman and my sophomore year. And all of that was going on during that time. And I remember we moved into a house and it was very important for me that we got cable up as soon as possible. And we did. And once we got cable, I wasn't getting my normal channels. What I was getting though was TNT still. And I had kind of given up on wrestling a little bit. I really wasn't that interested. it was just a case of, at that time, it was what was on. And what was on was the Hulk Hogan NWO trash fest, if you will, because every time they appeared on Nitro after the turn, the ring just became a trash fest of people throwing stuff, and they loved it. They really reveled in it. And that is the one thing that is definitely comparable to this, Josh. They are reveling in the John Cena turn. WWE loves the attention they're getting. And it was an amazing event that happened in pro wrestling that I don't think any of us will ever forget. There's the weird Rock throat slit thing and whatever, but more importantly, there was the weird sleeper agent Cena that was woken up by the code word that the Rock said. Whatever the code word was, it was the right combination of words that turned John Cena into a killer, a stone cold killer. And I love that moment. That moment has become a meme. It has become like instantly just one of the most memorable, like right up there, top 10 memorable moments in pro wrestling instantly.
Yeah. And the way it happened, so just kind of overall impression of that show, like I really enjoyed Elimination Chamber. It kind of just built. I'd say there's maybe like a moment around that women's tag team match and like the 20 minutes of commercials and whatever they did after that. Like that was a little awkward. Outside of that, the show had a really good flow. That said, the men's Elimination Chamber match, it got exciting. It built, and it got to that moment right by the end where, Seth Rollins, we thought he had actually left at that point, but then he, took advantage of the situation, gave the curb stomp, or whatever they're calling it now, to Cena, or not to Cena, but to Punk. And you saw that look on Cena's face where he's like, he kind of almost hesitated, but he's like, no, I got to do this. And like from a babyface perspective, even like we're watching, we're like, oh, this really works still. This is justifiable. Right. Anybody would do it, no matter if you're good guy or bad guy, whatever. Like you gotta take advantage of that situation.
You kind of be an idiot to not. Like you'd be an idiot. Like, what am I supposed to let him rest and get up and go at it for a fair fight?
Exactly. We're all already having that internal conversation within our head or with, the people who are sitting there watching it with. And then, just 5-10 minutes later, the whole thing happens. Like it just emotionally, it built up to that turn. And I didn't see it coming. I thought it was like some weird things happening with Cody. I figured something interesting was going to happen, but I just, for whatever reason, I just did not imagine it was going the way it did. So that when it did, it was one of the most impactful things. Like, if this was like old school steel cage podcast, I would have been like calling you guys immediately after that.
Emergency. Like, we need to do it tonight.
We need a podcast right now.
No, you're not wrong. Well, and okay, you're right, because I had people. You always have the people afterwards that are like, I saw this coming. I thought that no, you didn't. No, you didn't. Shut up. But it's fine to say that because there were certain things that might have been clues, but there wasn't a lot. In fact, they even had that segment planned to come before the Elimination Chamber. And I don't just mean what they said on TV, because they did say that on TV, that it was coming up next before the Elimination Chamber. And then they didn't have it then. And the reason why was because they pulled that move internally too. Everybody thought that segment was going to happen before the Elimination Chamber. Nobody knew what was going to happen with Cena, and nobody knew that Cena was going to turn. So they moved it afterwards as like a thing that happened during the show, almost for like timing. Like, oh, we're running out of time. We got to put the Elimination Chamber first, and then we're moving this segment to last. But they fully intended the whole time to have this happen last due to the events that needed to occur before it for the segment to happen, right? So like, They kept this under wraps as much as humanly possible.
So they were working as much of the team who was working on that event as possible.
You have to sometimes, right?
This is like you know if you know, and there's only a handful of people who knew, including Travis Scott, apparently.
Well, Travis Scott doesn't know how to throw a fake punch. He knows how to slap someone in the ear and rupture their eardrum, but so that's a whole other thing.
It was a whole thing where like the thing that was going down with The Rock and Cody Rhodes, they're having like this intense, awkward conversation. And at the same time, we got John Cena in the back, just like hyping up everything that Cody Rhodes says. We got Travis Scott in the back, lighting it up, lighting up some incense. I don't know what he was doing. He was doing all sorts of stuff back there.
Saging the ring for bad spirits.
Sage, yeah. Like, regardless, like the background stuff was kind of hilarious, and we're like, all right, this is entertaining. Sure, I guess. Okay, yeah. This will be a moment, and then of course the moment happened. Absolutely wild, man. Like it really just invigorated what we're building up to at WrestleMania. And it really cemented the conversation that we had leading into Elimination Chamber. We're like, Royal Rumble's a big deal. Elimination Chamber's like right up there too.
We said that. Yes, absolutely. Megaran said that. Yeah, and I think this is the reason why, is because the Royal Rumble can build someone up. Right? Like the Royal Rumble can make someone like Jey Uso into, no cliche intended, but a main eventer, right? And if let's be honest, I don't want to knock that program, but they aren't exactly putting their all into it. Like it feels like it's getting pretty repetitive on Raw a bit. I still love Jey Uso, and I still believe in him as a main event guy. I still think that he should beat Gunther, and this will be a great moment. However, this is the real WrestleMania main event, and this is delivering not only on star power but on story, right? There's a lot of things to take away from this, and the fact is that you have the John Cena heel turn and the impact that it has, beyond, but you also have, like, I don't know how well that Elimination Chamber went, right? Like everything was really well paced. You had some great spots. You had Logan Paul kind of going off a bit, even though I hate to give him any flowers, but he still continues to be impressive as the dickhead heel that he is, right? But I loved at the beginning of it, when they do the customary, I'm going to go around the ring and look in all the cages. I loved how much it looked like Arkham Asylum. Like it was a bunch of absolute maniacs in each one of their little cells, in each one of their prison cells. And like, they were all different. You had CM Punk cross-legged on the ground, be like, and they're like, it was a really cool moment where I realized like what a good job they did at building those guys that were in that matchup. And then just the flow, like it never really got boring. It told individual stories. It felt like rivalries were built from that point on, so like they did as good of a job with that, with the Elimination Chamber, as they do with the Royal Rumble, with kind of building some rivalries off of guys eliminating each other and whatnot. But Dave, I gotta ask, there's been talk of a third man, right? There's the weird way that The Rock has been throwing his fingers up. He had the 3, and then with the throat slit, there was the 2, and now people are assuming that when there's the next thing that happens, it's the 1. Do you think that there's a third man? Does there need to be a third man?
So that's kind of how I feel. Like, I don't know if there needs to be. I mean, obviously, it's fine if they do have a third guy. I mean, they have a third guy. It's Travis Scott.
It is Travis Scott. I had a wonderful conversation. I got to fill you in, Dave. One of the Arizona Diamondbacks relievers, Ryan Thompson, a.k.a. T-Time, he's a big wrestling fan. And no matter how much we talk about baseball, it always comes back to pro wrestling. And I saw him in the locker room the other day, and he immediately came up to me and was like, John Cena.
Yeah.
And we started going through the 3-man thing. I threw out there that the third man could be, just for fun, Dave Bautista. And I'm just saying that would give them the legendary Hollywood champions all together as like one group. But it would be funny because like they could literally bring Dave back one night for one thing, and just to have him like maybe put those guys on blast and be like, you guys, whatever. And then, Cody Rhodes comes out and stands there with Dave, and then Dave gives him the nut shot too. I don't know. It would just be fun. I think that's just for fun. But it does feel like Seth Rollins could be the third man. There's something there, right? Like he has the rivalry with CM Punk, and then CM Punk on Raw kind of gets involved with this whole thing. We'll get to that. But Seth Rollins was the one that delivered the shot after he was eliminated that allowed Cena to win the match. So there's this feeling that there might be some collusion there between Seth Rollins and Rock and John Cena. Josh, you like that? You go, who likes that? You like that?
I mean, if there's going to be a third, Seth Rollins seems like the obvious choice. I mean, he's always finding himself in these situations where he's just blowing shit up. You know, that's his music.
Yeah.
That's his phrase.
Yeah.
Burn it
Yeah.
down. Like,
yeah. Plus, he could want all of that. You know, like he could give into that dark side of the stuff The Rock was trying to provide to Cody Rhodes because Seth feels he's been unjustly kind of kept out of having, you know, everything he wants in life.
I still can't help but think about what CM Punk said to Cody like last month or a few weeks ago or whatever, where he said, "I'm going to stab you from the front." So I can't help but wonder if there's going to be a third guy. It's got to be
CM
Punk.
Oh wow,
I just keep thinking about
wild.
that.
Yeah,
I just keep thinking about that. What he said to Cody, right? I'm going to stab you from the front.
I think it's because CM Punk always, you know, he comes out and he does the thing, right? Like he did, you know, getting into the mix of this whole thing by calling out Dwayne and everybody on Raw, which was an electric moment. Like there's few people that can deliver a moment like that the way the CM Punk does. But the one thing that I have against that is it feels like the right sides are aligning on the right sides and the bad guys are aligning over here. And I like the way that everybody's positioned because it has the top guys, you know, that are the most popular guys on the right on the right side of things right now. John Cena's popular, but the whole farewell tour thing felt weird and gross at times, and it felt like him just being this like sad dog that was slinking off to go die in the woods, but wanted to get pet on the head one last time. Like it was like weird, and I'm glad that they changed direction with it. I'm glad they had the press conference where John Cena, after, you know, Royal Rumble, kind of had that attitude change, and you could see it just a little bit starting there. But from there to the next press conference where he literally said nothing, just dropped the microphone and got up and walked out. It was so good. It was so good.
It's definitely made everything like so much more exciting. Like who would it's such a simple thing, but man, like, I mean, come on, man. I'm so hyped to see where this goes. I don't know where it's gonna go, but I'm excited.
That's what it is, right? That's what it is. I will say this. We probably talked about this, Josh, on this podcast after Ran and I went to the Raw Netflix debut, but the crowd, the viewing audience, the IWC, everybody was kind of like, what just happened when The Rock came out and wasn't The Rock? The Rock came out on Netflix debut and was Dwayne and was breaking the fourth wall and was just like, I love Cody. Cody's the best. We're going to go have some Terramana tequila backstage and stuff. And everybody was like, what the hell is going on? Didn't the last time you guys see each other, you whispered some nasty shit into his ear like you were going to kill him or something and then went off to Hollywood again? Like it felt like such a botched, you know, storyline that they had put so much work into that still felt like it had legs to it. And now here we are at this point where all of it somehow came together. All of it made sense. Like, I don't know if that was an intentional screw up so that they could get to this point, or if they just figured out how to do this story based on that. Cause I think it's the latter. I think they had that night where it seemed like WWE as a whole forgot that it was an episode of Raw and not just some sort of like, hey, we're on Netflix kind of thing, you know, here's some cool matches. Hey, we're on Netflix, you know, but like it feels now very much like, you know, they got everything back on track and did a great job of kind of bouncing back from that moment, I guess, impacting the overall storyline.
So my favorite part about everything that you were just saying is it feels like the booking strategy of WWE is a little bit different these days. Like it's not, I don't know, back in the day it was like, you know, the calendar year is coming to a close. We already kind of have an idea of like what WrestleMania is probably building towards in terms of like the main storylines and whatnot.
Yes.
And it's like,
yes,
we kind of have an idea of like who's on a trajectory, all that. You know what? After a while, like I kind of hated it. Like that's like the old Vince McMahon style of kind of like putting all that stuff together. I mean, these days it feels a little like just the right amount of like what AEW is trying to do, where they're like, hey, this is pro wrestling. Let's kind of treat it sort of like a sport, you know, like it doesn't have to be like building up in a storyline to this thing. Like there's a competition that's going down. Fuck it. Jey Uso can win this whole thing. Legitimately. He didn't have a story arc building into a championship match necessarily, but you know what? He earned it.
But you know what?
Like all this other stuff.
Yeah. Here's the other thing though, because people were mad that it felt like Jey Uso was more blamed for the fact that John Cena didn't win. And it's like, yeah, John Cena didn't win because they had this kind of thing an idea in plan. But you're right, because the old booking of WWF and WWE felt like they wrote a thing and they stuck to it. And even if it wasn't working, they had already committed to it, and they had to make sure that what they were committing to was something, solid. Like, we're not going to commit to somebody that we don't feel is like a top guy coming and, building up or whatever. But no matter what happened with the audience, the reaction, or the way things went in the universe, in the WWE storyline, universe, they wouldn't change direction. And that's why this feels different. It's different from the Daniel Bryan booking, right? Like, WWE fans really did impact that situation, and it does show the power the viewing audience has, but it also gave fans this entitlement, I think, to think that they can change everything that the WWE is doing by going online and bitching about it or whatever. And obviously there's at least two guys on this podcast right now that are guilty of that very much, right? But it's because they made us feel empowered, Josh. They were like, you guys did this, and we were like, sweet, what else can we fucking change around here? Let's roll up our sleeves and get some shit done. I've been waiting to tackle this entire Intercontinental Championship situation, so let's go.
It used to feel like, like those rail shooter games at the arcade where it's like, Vince McMahon has this story on a rail. We're not getting off this thing. It's going in a certain direction. And it felt like we kind of pushed it off the rail. Whereas these days, it doesn't feel like they're on a rail anymore, even to start with. So, like, maybe it does still have, an opportunity for fans to impact storylines and whatnot, but they're ready for it. And they kind of invite it to a degree. However these things come together, like, it's just, I don't know, from a fan perspective, they have a ton of time. This year is particularly different because it's so late in April. I think that probably has to do with rescheduling with Minneapolis and not doing WrestleMania there and all that jazz and finding a weekend to make it work.
We even changed that. Do your cold weather shit. Totally. Give us like warm weather, Vegas or New Orleans every year. Let's just do those two venues. Back to back on
that's what they're doing now.
Alternating years.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I love about it is, we've got Royal Rumble, we've got the Elimination Chamber, two huge events in 2 months, and then there even let's say that Elimination Chamber happened to be towards the end of February, WrestleMania might get scheduled towards the beginning of April. That's still over a month for things to really come together storyline wise from that one show. So they've got like really, a solid 3 months to truly build things up. It doesn't have to be so predictable.
Right.
And that's where we're at these days. And I hope it keeps happening this way because it just, I don't know, it's exciting. It's fun. I actually want to tune in on a week-to-week basis again, like it's cool. It's a good time to be a wrestling fan.
It's a lot to balance. You're trying to do long-term storyline booking. You're trying to book who's hot. You're also trying to do things based on certain politics, like there's so many factors that can basically make it bad, right? And that's the problem with WWE at times, is that too many of those other factors get involved and then you don't have what the fans want. You also have the fact that sometimes fans are fickle. Sometimes fans are, as Vince McMahon once described, little children, that if you let them have what they want, they'll eat nothing but candy all the time, and so you got to sometimes make sure that the kids get broccoli, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, this is you're right, though. This feels like some of the best, not only like one of the most talented rosters, where the storylines are all over the place. They're all intriguing. It doesn't really matter. It's like, take your pick. Like they're doing a great job with almost everything they're doing. I like the build for Penta, but I'm not huge on the story they're doing with that. But meanwhile, Chad Gable might have discovered the Lucha Temple, Josh. And if that's the case, then I'm all in on whatever is happening with Chad Gable. And the mystery and intrigue has me. But that's just a small example. Like those small storylines, those side things, they've all just made everything really good. The stuff at the top is great. I mean, we haven't even touched on how good the women's wrestling is, but my God, the women's chamber was incredible. You have Bianca Belair coming out on top there. whipping another woman with her braid harder than I've ever heard anybody whip anything with anything ever in my entire life.
Yeah, Liv
Yeah,
Morgan, first of all, MVP of that match.
Totally.
Not only
Absolutely.
for getting whipped, literally, but like she played such a vital role from start to finish. Like I loved it. Fantastic.
She's in her bag. She is one of the best, and she deserves
Yep.
to be up there. You have the fact that Alexa Bliss returning has been such a delight, and she's delivered, right? Like she's been great in the ring, and I mean, you have this mix of that. You have Roxanne Perez in there, you know, and again, it's just it's a really fresh mix. But you also have Jade Cargill coming in and just fucking up Naomi, furthering that storyline. Like I don't. Is she mad Naomi lost their tag titles, or is Naomi the person that attacked her? We still don't even know that.
Right. And right at the beginning of the show too, like that felt like it was going to be one of the big takeaway moments, but we almost kind of forgot about it.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's nothing. We had so much other stuff to talk about.
I literally was like getting a soda when that, like, I was like, I'm sure she's going to show up, but probably not till the end, right? So I was like getting a soda. It's like, oh man, I missed the whole thing.
Someone stitched that with the scene from Hunger Games where she has to watch while she's in the tube getting taken up, and it was Bianca crying in her tube, and it was Katniss Everdeen from Hunger Games crying in her tube. Oh, it was just, it was perfect. It was so
nice. Good. Yeah, that was a really great match though. But I mean, obviously Jade always in phenomenal shape. She's like a statue. But yeah, really curious to see where they're gonna go with that. But man, yeah, that match. I mean, like also to kind of talk about Liv again, like even leading up to the Elimination Chamber, just the matches that she would have on Raw, like the tag matches and like whatever other singles matches. Man, she really is like so good. I mean, she's a bump machine, dude. She gets beat up in the matches, and like I totally respect it, you know. And so but yeah, man, she's killing it, and like I'm so excited to see where Roxanne takes it. I mean, she's just on like all the shows right now. She's on NXT. I mean, I guess she's just on Raw too, or is it Raw or SmackDown? Is she on both of them? She's like on everything.
I don't know, but I mean, again, it's I have too. And again, especially when it's this like chamber stuff, qualification matches and all that, like again, they've done a great job of that, right? Like there was a time that with the brand split, it felt like the rosters were really limited on both shows, and you were just going to see kind of the same rivalries and stuff pushed. They do whatever they want now, as they should. They should not hold themselves to any kind of stupid brand split or anything like that. They've introduced the transfer portal like college sports, which is amazing. And like they can just they have a vast amount of talent. They're doing a great job cultivating the talent in NXT and making those guys like real characters, where when Tony D'Angelo and the D'Angelo family arrives on SmackDown, it's going to have an impact. It's not just who the hell are these guys? Like, it's going to be a big deal because they've done such a good job of building that like faction up on NXT and so many other guys, right? So, but yeah, like the fact that wrestlers can show up wherever, whenever, or be on a show now, or be here or there, like it maybe doesn't feel as special as it did one time with the Raws after WrestleMania, but I don't think it needs to, because now they can kind of recreate that type of moment kind of at any point during the year, instead of it having, you know, there was that time, the 3 or 4 year run, maybe not even that long, where like, yes, who are we going to see? Who's from NXT is going to debut? And then like it got kind of old fast.
It's the exciting thing just becomes formulaic, and they fell into the trap of, hey, we're going to do that every year. Before we get too far away from it, I want to, I want to talk about the finish of that women's chamber match. Obviously, Bianca Belair came away the winner. We had that little stare down with Rhea coming out, but then also Io coming out, which foreshadowed the championship match that had previously been booked on Raw for the next day, or for 2 days after the Elimination Chamber event.
And
Dave,
honestly, it felt like
yeah.
such a throw-in of EO. Like they were like, "Oh yeah, we have that match. We should send EO out there just so that she's also out there." And then they did what they did on Monday.
Which was
holy shit,
kind of perfect. It almost
Yeah.
felt like it was a little bit of a swerve of, oh yeah, she's there too. Don't worry about her. Kind of the same way where like John Cena, like he had kind of like fallen into the background heading into Elimination Chamber. It's, oh yeah, don't worry about him. But then all of a sudden they rise up and well, I want to hear your take on things, Dave, because I know you were probably the most excited out of all of us.
Yeah. I am an EO stan. Like ever since I was first introduced to her in NXT, even before she was a heel. Then I think she was like going as a pure babyface called the Genius of the Sky. I was like, man, this girl is like really good, and she just like continued to get better and better. But you know, like just seeing her win record in the past few months. I mean, she looks strong, right? But like, I don't know, it just kind of seemed like she was kind of floundering, and I was just like, okay, I'm still gonna root hard for her, but this is it, man. They're not gonna do anything with her. And so, like, seriously, I was shocked on Monday when she won that title. Like, and I think, you know, growing up on wrestling, we've kind of been conditioned to think that like, oh yeah, the title changes, they're not going to happen unless they're on the pay-per-views or whatever. So that's kind of how I felt with it. But yeah, no, they did an amazing job. And obviously EO and Rhea had a killer match, just like they always do, going all the way back to the when they first wrestled in the Mae Young Classic. Like they burn it down every time. And so yeah, really cool match. And I mean, also like going to Rhea, like it's so interesting to see how it was all her fault. She lost. It was her fault that she lost the title. And like
1,000%. And that was what was so good about the whole storytelling. Yeah. Go back to what Josh said. Like the literally overlooking EO is what cost her. And the fact is that just like the audience, just like us, they already had the match booked for WrestleMania. It was Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley. That's it. That's what it was going to be. And we already had that locked in. Like Josh said, especially with his metaphor that I'm so mad about because it's so good, but about rail shooters, right? Rail shooters give you those arcade rail shooters like Time Crisis and shit. They give you the illusion that you are like on your, but you're not. They're moving you all over the place. You might have a pedal that you can stick your head out from behind a thing, but besides that, that's all you're getting, right? So like this is such a different time where it felt like we were on that rail. That was already it. That rail was going to lead from the end of Elimination Chamber right into WrestleMania. And instead we have this, and it might still, right? They could still do a rematch between EO and Rhea between now and then, and Rhea gets it back. That might not look so great for EO, but again, it could be just part of cementing Rhea Ripley's legacy. Rhea Ripley, right. I mean, the biggest problem here is that the WWE just has so many great women right now that it's hard to have somebody stand out. I guess it's also the reason why people are completely done with Charlotte Flair, because Charlotte Flair is a women's wrestler that they kind of shoved down our throat in a way like they did with so many other male wrestlers that they wanted to kind of push to the top, where it's like she's a 25-time women's champion or something ridiculous right now. Like they just kept stacking wins for her and trying to get her up there so that they could say she's the blank time champion, right? But realistically, like especially in this match, when Rhea Ripley came out and with the way that she came out, there was even some arrogance to her. She came out at the beginning of the match like singing her song and flexing and stuff. It felt like she was doing more than she normally did before a match, and all of that kind of leads to how good the storytelling was in this whole thing of essentially overlooking Io Sky, who, as they talked about in the broadcast, right, has her number. You overlook somebody that's beat you more times than you've beat her, yet you were so worried about Bianca that you didn't even think about how good the opponent in the ring across from you was.
Yeah. But the way we're conditioned as wrestling fans, we're like, you know, it felt to me that they were doing all of that and then they were still going to have her win. Like, that's just the way it felt. Like, I felt that in my bones. I'm like, they're just going to do Io dirty, man. But it ultimately, I'm going to go back to the sports thing. Like, it felt like a sporting thing. Like, you know, Io maybe didn't necessarily have all the momentum coming into this, but she over time has still earned her spot. And then, you know, when the time was right. Like, she struck. It brings me back to the Diamondbacks run. Like they had a heck of a run. They were like sort of the underdogs coming in, and they made the big run, pushed their way all the way to the World Series. You don't have to have like this full big thing. You can just come in from the side and sort of catch people off guard. You still earned it. It's honestly more exciting. You can't do that every single time, but like, I've been feeling more of that type of stuff lately when I watch pro wrestling, and that's the exciting stuff to me.
No, it's absolutely it is, and I mean that's what we want, right? Like we want things to feel not like they've like they're doing it and they don't care what we think, and they're just going to do it based on who they internally think should be this or that, the other thing, right? Like we know that it's a storyline, we know that it's a decided thing behind closed doors amongst front office and writers and management, all that stuff, but make us believe otherwise. Like let us lose that sense of like this is all predetermined and have it be things like this. And again, you don't have to do it often. I think back to Samoa Joe winning the NXT championship on a house show, right? Like you do something like that one time, and now we are like, that shit can happen whenever. And it just gives us that feeling like that it's not just, like you said, Dave, like it's just going to be the pay-per-view. There's no way that Rhea's going to lose it tonight. WrestleMania is coming up there, and again, to do this now makes us lose that sense of that we know what's going to happen. It gives us at least that feeling that anything can happen at any time.
As a fan, it made me feel so much better too, because they had 3 championship matches on this week's Raw, and the first 2 were both successful defenses. I'm like, they just gonna book 3 championship matches. They're all gonna be defenses. Like,
it's lame.
It's not that exciting, is it?
Right.
So it was. Yep.
I still want her to finish her story with Penta, by the way, from the Lucha Underground days, because they still have a score to settle with each other. At least Penta does. They whooped his ass on several occasions, but that's just if he wants to get his revenge. That's up to him. But a couple of things there. Penta, kind of like whatever, right? Like it's funny because I'm fine with it. I still like that they're doing stuff with him and that they're just kind of showcasing him, right? They're not really making this a super deep thing between him and these other 2 cats, but somehow the Chad Gable stuff, like I alluded to earlier, is way more interesting than what they're doing with Penta, because we have no idea where they're going with it. Many people, because WWE does own the rights technically to Lucha Underground's like category or their catalog at this point, right? That they actually like own Lucha Underground. And I know MLW for years has been basically making Lucha Underground happen as like part of MLW, but I don't know, the way they shot it, the mysterious box, him paying way too much money for whatever the hell is in it, and more importantly, him being very excited about what's in it. I mean, I feel like immediately my head went to, it's got to be the Aztec medals. It's got to be the little medals that they put in the belt and that they had to collect the medal. Something, give me something from Lucha Underground. I don't care.
I don't know what to expect with that whole thing. Again,
but
just another another, it's just like, what's gonna happen, right? And it's just got me going back, just like, dude, I gotta see what's gonna happen here.
It feels to me, I don't know, I guess I don't want to like get too excited, because there is a possibility
it's gonna be disappointing.
Well, I mean, it's probably a mask of some sort, but like, we've had wrestlers don masks in the past. We've had Edge and Christian do their thing. We've had Kurt Angle, Hulk Hogan, at various times. But my hope is that, this is kind of like Chad Gable taking it seriously, because, his crew, Ivy Nile and American Made, they all lost their opportunities. They all kind of suck. They don't suck, but he's gonna come off as if they do.
Well, they did. You're right. So they both had championship matches on this Raw, and he wasn't there to manage them or help them win. And pretty big opportunities. She had a shot at the Women's Intercontinental Championship, and they had a shot at the Tag Championship. And Chad's just off in Mexico buying himself a luchador mask for entirely too. Chad, I could have gotten you one for $300, and it was ring worn. And I'll get an autograph for you. But I like what's different about this, Josh, is that every time they've done this bit, it's so that the guy hides his identity, right? It's for Edge and Christian to be the conquistadors, or it was for,
Right.
like Hulk Hogan to not be Hulk Hogan, which probably was a good move. He saw what was coming and knew he needed to change his gimmick up. But yeah, like it's always kind of been like a changing. Sorry, my bulldog's in here making entirely too much noise. It could be about like him literally getting the superpowers when he puts the mask on. But more importantly, could you imagine Luchador Chad Gable? What if he starts doing, Chope Suicidas and Hurricane Ranas and just flips off the top rope and stuff? Like that could be incredible.
I would love that. That would be
awesome.
Hilarious,
one way or another. It could either be amazing or hilarious.
Chad deserves his flowers because everything that you mentioned, I believe that he could do it.
Yes.
And hopefully we'll see that coming up here.
No, I mean, I don't know. I love just everything that we're seeing. So it feels now, the AEW makes the claim about the Forbidden Door, but it's like the Forbidden Door really was Pandora's box. It's like they started working together with companies in a way that Josh and I always wished when we were huge fans of New Japan Pro Wrestling, almost 10 years ago. And, we were seeing all this cool talent. We were like, man, it'd be cool if we could get, and now we do. Now we get all of this stuff mixing together. But it's, again, even this like leads. That's why everybody was like, is the person he's going to meet going to be Dario Cueto? And it wasn't. It was some guy in very, very bad makeup of some kind. But nonetheless, it still makes it very intriguing, and people still have that, like, again, that expectation that anything can happen. So who knows if all of a sudden we see Chad, in Boyle Heights coming up on the temple or something like that. Like it could be really cool. But we have so much more to talk about. I know that. And speaking of which, NXT, by the way, I just want to say, NXT has been my favorite Forbidden Door right now with the deal with TNA, because anything can happen. Anybody can show up. And I lost my mind when Santino Marella just all of a sudden started appearing on WWE television again. They should have never let that man go, ever. That was such a huge mistake. He is so good in that stupid role that he's with TNA, and he could have been doing this for the WWE for years.
Is he still doing a comedy bit?
Kinda, yeah. He's like the director of authority, is what he is.
Okay,
he is, and he has a badge that he hangs inexplicably around his neck. But like, no, it's just great. Like, again, the TNA thing, Fandango showed up. We had like all sorts of surprises. Moose taking on Alexis King. This has been a fun thing, a fun partnership. Jordan Grace signed with WWE, and she's incredible. So just all sorts of good things happening with the WWE, kind of, again, changing their ways, Josh, breaking away from the old ways of being ran by somebody with petty grievances and, like all sorts of weird personal issues. And now it's being ran the way that we always wanted it to be ran.
Yep. They needed some fresh leadership. They needed a change at the top. And that's exactly what we've gotten with the TKO acquisition. And, we still have McMahon's, at or near the top doing things, but it's not the one McMahon. And it seems to be a big difference maker there.
I get people's personal things with it. And honestly, bless you. If you don't want to support this company because of their politics or because of the terrible things that for years they covered up and were a part of, we are with you, but at the same time, it's like, I just want my forms of entertainment to be forms of entertainment. And I want them at the end of the day to make me happy and not make me jump on a podcast and complain with my friends for 6 years straight.
I mean, it's like, I don't have to love WWE, just like I love the Green Bay Packers, but I don't have to love the NFL. I hate the NFL. I hate the people at the top who run that shit. I hate this. That's how I feel about WWE. But the wrestlers that I support and like that's why I want to tune in still. So I'm going to, at least these days.
And it's hard because we've in the past had personal connections with wrestlers. It's getting to the point now, Josh, that guys I've worked with, one Ricky Stonks. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ricky Stonks or Ricky Saints. Excuse me. I still wish they would have gone with Ricky Stonks, but I still remember when we worked together in 2016 and me and him walking out together and me gassing him up about how much different he was than everybody else there. And I wasn't gassing him up. I was just literally observing with my own eyes somebody that was a superstar talent versus everybody else. Right. So like, man, I mean, it's great to see that. It's great to see him make that leap after all of the, you know, problems he had with getting out of his AEW deal and how toxic that situation turned, you know. And again, it's great for WWE, like they did with Ethan Page, to kind of see the value in a guy like this coming over and kind of cultivate it. I mean, that's kind of what's been going on right now in NXT. Shawn Spears, Ricky, you know, you have Ethan Page, you have Lexis King. These guys are all thriving in the WWE in ways that they might never have in AEW.
For sure. I can't wait to see how Ricky flips it upside down in NXT. It's so interesting too, right? Because all the guys that you mentioned, like how they switched over, you know, they went over to NXT and it's like way better for them. It's just like, I just wonder the details, right? Because then you have guys like Cope, right? You have guys like Cope who are in AEW and they're seemingly having like such a good experience themselves, you know? And so it's like, it's just interesting. You know what I mean? Like what people are looking for and
yeah. Cope and Mox, Ricochet now, like there's I don't know, there's a difference between how those shows are booked, the feeling, the vibes, all of that. And you know, one place is going to work better for one set of people and one place is going to work better for another set of people. Like I don't see any problem with it. Like people can move back and forth and figure out what works for them.
It's opportunity. Great. It's all about opportunity. We've all had jobs that we worked at that sucked, that other people that we worked with didn't hate it as much as we did. Other people were thriving in those jobs. And you're like, I don't even understand how you get up in the morning and come here, you know? And so that's the problem, is that sometimes with these things, especially again, you know, AEW is not free of that criticism or free of that whole thing that we talked about with Vince McMahon running your company in a way where you're, you know, petty grievances have developed and you're having relationship problems with your talent and you're allowing those problems that you have to impact the fact that you have this amazing talent. So instead of having them out there and building them up and having them sell tickets for you, you're having them sit at home and paying them just based on whatever reason. Right. And like, it's a very Vince McMahon kind of thing to do. You know, I heard recently that TK had a change in philosophy in regards to this, where he is not acting this way anymore, or maybe, you know, because recently Phoenix was released and apparently that came with him making some comments about kind of changing some of that. And hopefully that's the case, right? Like this should all be ran in a way where it makes sense for everybody. And honestly, if you can cut a guy and maybe, like, I don't know, like I don't see a reason to keep unhappy people around. I also get the fact that, you know, it's a competition, right? You can't just let your guys that you've put work into just jump ship and go to WWE and, you know, do what some of these guys are doing right now. The one difference,
it's a contract at the end of the day, right? So
it is a contract, but you're also, I feel like as an employer, you're also responsible for your end of it too, right? Like you sign this guy to wrestle in a ring. You could book him to lose a bunch. I mean, that's fine, but having him sit at home so that people forget he exists is kind of like a wild, I feel like a breach of contract on your end as an employer, but I'm sure that's not the case. It's what it feels like, right? But AEW is thriving, like you said, and those guys are doing well over there. The big difference is that those guys were stars that were made stars by WWE and then kind of brought their star power over to AEW, and AEW is utilizing that star power, right? They've done a great job with building guys up as well, like Swerve, who is an incredible talent. You have, you know, other like wrestlers that, like Josh said, like where it feels like a sport because of the fact that they have had some TV time, become very entertaining, and earned more TV time, earned an opportunity, earned to be featured more. It feels like people in AEW are getting that chance, right? And this is all good stuff. I mean, it's all great, but I think nothing is cooler right now than the Hardy Boys being back in WWE doing air humps.
So wild, right? And look, going back on Santino, when the Hardys came out on NXT, big pop, right?
Yeah.
Arguably, Santino got a bigger pop, which is
right.
Cool to see.
Well, because everybody knows that the Hardy Boys are there, right? So it's like when they come out, you're excited. But like the Santino thing is part of why it's so cool with this TNA partnership, because anybody can show up at any time and then boom, they pop in, they walk through that door, and now like, hey, it's something exciting is happening, you know. And again, that's what sometimes makes wrestling the best, is the surprises and, you know, again, the not knowing what's going to happen at any particular time.
Yeah, I hope that I've always been a big Hardy Boys fan. And you know, I don't want to tread on the past and things like that, you know, specifically with Jeff Hardy, but I really hope that it's right this time, you know.
I think that all the time about a lot of guys, right? I think that about Jimmy Uso. I think that about Jeff Hardy. I think that about several guys, that it's like, God damn it, we love you. We want to give you so many chances. We don't want to, like, we understand. I think we can all relate. But then after a while, it's like, I don't know. You have lots of money and lifts are everywhere. And I don't know why you can't, like, get your shit together and behave, right? Like, it sucks sometimes when you become a star the level of some of these wrestlers, because you do have to have like a certain sense of responsibility and a different, like, you can't just be a normal person anymore, unfortunately, right? Like you can't just make the same mistakes a normal person makes and then be like, oops, sorry about that. Like, there's things that don't make any goddamn sense. And it makes me understand more and more why, when we hang out with some of the wrestlers and we ask them like, hey, where's this guy, where's that guy, and they're like, oh, they're back at the hotel. They don't go out. They come here, they do the show, they take the company car or ride or SUV back to the hotel where all the boys are staying, which is by the airport. They go to sleep at like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then they are up early to get out of here. Or in some cases, they just go from the show directly to the airport, right? But there's a reason for that. Like, these guys, there's danger out there. And like, especially when you like to have a good time, you like to hang out, you like to have a few drinks, you like to, you know, some of these guys love to hang out with the fans. Like, they're totally cool. They'll come to a bar and there'll be a bunch of WWE fans there and they'll just hang out. I've seen Xavier Woods be one of the coolest people I've ever seen, despite him being a dickbag right now on WWE television, and to our friend Mega Ran after he made him with the song. But I've seen him be so cool to people at a bar and stuff, right? Like, so some of these guys don't mind hanging out, but there's danger out there for them because, again, their career can be ruined by a night hanging out and having drinks and doing some of this stuff. And none of us want that. We don't want that. We don't want it to be a reoccurring thing. Most importantly, we don't want anything terrible to happen to these guys. Like, it's about you. It's about you killing someone. It's about a lot of different things. So get your shit together, have some responsibility, and we love you. We don't want to have these conversations anymore about people deserving to be in wrestling when we all really, at the end of the day, want to see them, you know. But anyway, it's
all about them just being safe at the end of the day. But definitely looking forward to the Hardys versus Fraxium on whatever the next NXT pay-per-view is. But
speaking of dickbags, what has happened to Nathan Frazier? He is like losing it.
I know.
he does such a good job of tiptoeing up to the line to be like, you're going full heel, and then being cool again, like either with his partner or even with the Hardys. Like, he was like, you know, talking that shit, but then respectfully, right? Like, so that was cool. And they've done a good job, like, for being two guys that they just kind of threw together that they didn't have anything better to do with. Like, Fraxium has become like an incredible tag team in NXT. So it's fun to have that matchup and to have the new versus the legendary like that.
Yeah, there's been tension between those guys for a while now, and I'm kind of hoping that they just never pull the trigger. They're totally cool the whole time. That's just,
I don't know. I still love Axiom. Is still one of my favorite wrestlers in NXT, and it goes back to the early days where they still didn't really know what they were going to do with him, but he would just be hanging out in his mask and a turtleneck, and he would just be kind of casually reading the newspaper and drinking some coffee, which you were like, how are you putting that in your mouth? And then he'd just be commenting in his very English voice on people's, you know, situations or whatever. And I'm like, I love this. I love a luchador that isn't actually Spanish speaking, who's just sitting there talking in English, but with like a full-on luchador type match. It's like, it's amazing. And I know it's a very talented wrestler behind that mask as well, that I was surprised they even put him in a mask, but so far it's worked out. NXT overall, though, Josh and I, we talked about how good the women are. The women continue to be incredible. The women continue to steal the show in NXT. However, this week was stolen a little bit by Shawn Spears defeating Tony D'Angelo for the North American Championship, which I did not like.
Yeah, Tony's cool, man. I've ever since I first saw him and he came out doing this thing to the crowd.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. Well, it was when the crowd was doing it back to him. The crowd was like doing it back, and I was like, oh yeah. The NXT crowd is great. Like, again, the only thing I could compare the NXT crowd to is like PWG, where they kind of create things, and then the WWE is like, oh, we love that. We're gonna do that. Yeah, we're gonna do that every time Lyra Valkyrie comes out, and we're gonna do the whoop that trick thing every time. Like, we might even pump a little sound into it just to get people going. But like, it's because NXT crowd is doing things very organically, creating fun stuff that goes with the wrestlers, and yeah, it's great. It's all part of building these guys up.
Yeah, for sure, man. I wonder where Tony's gonna go though. I mean, it would make sense. I don't know if you saw. I think he had a match fairly recently with Oba Femi, and so. I think it'd be cool if he kind of jumped into that picture, but regardless, congrats to Sean Spears. I think they struck that at the right time when they should have done it, and I think it's great. But yeah, man, like you, I love Tony, and I'm curious to see where he's gonna go from here. But
I was wondering that, Josh. Do you think it's time? Because it feels like Tony D'Angelo is like the most seasoned NXT person still there, like. He was having matches, on the same card as Carmelo and Tiffany Stratton and all that. Like, I feel like he's been around that long. He was like around ever since they kind of did the rebrand where NXT was a little bit kind of over the top and a little bit more, I don't know how to say it. Like, right. Wasn't it the Color Splash era with like Braun Breaker and all that, where Tony D'Angelo first made his debut too. So like, it just feels like he's been around forever in NXT.
Yeah, this is why I have nothing to add, because that was around the time where I was like, yeah, I'm out. And I just stopped watching for a while.
Because they just all of a sudden were like, hey, we're just going to introduce all these new people and we're going to have it be different. And it was almost kind of cartoonish at first. And they did a good job of reeling it back in.
Yeah. The vibe was just way different. Enough of those guys just did not resonate with me, and so I'm like, yeah, I don't have time for this. I got two little small children at home. I gotta pick and choose my.
I don't have so much time for wrestling. Yeah, no,
that said, I do fully intend on checking out Roadblock next week. So
it's an interesting show. I mean, we got Julia versus the best goddamn wrestler on the planet, Stephanie Vaquer.
Dude,
I love Stephanie Vaquer more than I love Air, guys. I love Stephanie Vaquer more than I think I've loved any professional wrestler, man or woman. And also, shout out to Vic on NXT, who just casually fucking delivers bars when it comes to Stephanie Vaquer. She'll be whooping someone's ass, and he'll just be like, Stephanie Vaquer walked through hell. She made a house there. She has a down payment on a mortgage. She lives next to the devil, and she gives him shit every single night. And you're like, oh, whoa, fuck, Vic, that was some bars. Hold on.
Yeah, man.
I love it. She's great.
Dude, I'm a diehard Julia fan. Shameless plug, but I'm releasing a solo album next week, and there's a song about Julia on there. But, dude,
we have to play that on this podcast. That's definitely something that has to happen.
Dude, with all due respect to Julia, man, like, obviously I love her, but, dude, Stephanie is – dude, come on, man. Stephanie? She's a beast.
She's one of the most flawlessly perfect wrestlers I've ever seen. Like, it just goes to show that when you have the technique down so well, it matters. And like, again, she's like smooth. Her moves are innovative. She does shit that I've never really seen. Like, I don't know. She reminds me of one of those creator wrestlers where you just stacked all of his regular moves with other people's finishers. And then you're like, oh yeah, I do all that shit. That's why my guy is a badass.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, be curious to see like how that match is going to go too. Like the winner takes all the gold, right? So
yeah, and that's a big thing. It feels like once at the end, those girls are girls that they need in the main event picture. So yeah, it works. It definitely works to maybe move one of them along. But I don't know. Like, they already have Roxanne kind of there. Roxanne has the pedigree for being an NXT champion. So I don't know how it plays out. I again am in too much of the thought process of how quickly they're going to get these guys to the main roster, which probably is the main problem with NXT, is it's hard to like just let things live as its own thing on that brand. But it feels like when you start taking off for a guy, it's inevitable that the main rosters in their future within the next 6 months.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I feel like Julia and Steph are like ready for main roster, but obviously that would be a mistake because I mean, where do you find the room and all that stuff?
Right.
But
that's a good point. They could get lost really easily. But just as a comparison, right, you're never going to see a shit finish like you did in that North American Championship match in a match with Julia or Stephanie Vaquer. Because I don't know if you guys saw the end of that North American Championship match, but what in the actual fuck was that? I forgot. We just kind of moved past it. But that, I mean, my local CW affiliate at times decides to add their own commercials on top of WWE's commercial breaks. So they'll just literally cut out sometimes in the middle of a match, or I won't see a finish because they'll decide to add a Fry's Kroger ad like to the beginning of the commercial break, and they'll literally end the match early before I get to see who wins the pin or wins the match. I wish that would have happened in this match, Josh, because what a dog shit finish. Honestly, I'm furious with Tony D'Angelo. Or not Tony D'Angelo. No, it's not his fault. Sean Spears. Sean Spears is a veteran. He's been around for years. He should know fucking better. This was a big moment. It was him winning the championship. How many times have we seen somebody miss their spot and be like, okay, we're going to reset so that I can hit my spot? Like, it was the weirdest goddamn thing ever. It was like Tony was going to go to hit the spine buster, and then he doesn't, and like, he like rolled out of it, and then it looked like he was going to hit the knee, but he didn't hit the knee. And then he just kind of did a stone cold Luthez press and then rolled him up and won. Like, it was dog shit. It was one of those things that honestly should probably be deleted from the NXT archive forever because it was a bad ending to a bad match. Sorry, I had to get that out. I mean, I'm not going to get super critical. I like things. I'm happy now, but still, when I saw the clip on social media, I was like, why would you let that clip ever air? Why would you ever want anybody to see this? It was bad. But anyway, moving on to good things, I guess. I don't know. Josh, you have anything to say? You have any excuses to make for NXT? No.
I really don't at this point.
All right.
I'm interested to see where they go. To be honest, I still have not been sold on the men. That's why I kind of just let you guys take that conversation.
Yeah, no, I mean, the men's stuff is what it is. I think there's some people that are standing out, but there's not a lot. There's not like a perfect example, which I don't know if we'll even have time to get to with how long we've already gone, but Jacob Fatu, right? Jacob Fatu has ignited the pro wrestling world, and he's all I want to see all the time.
Yeah,
I will stop and watch any Fatu promo, backstage segment, match, it doesn't matter. And like, there isn't a single male wrestler on the NXT roster right now that really does that for me, and there should be somebody that at least generates enough of an interest in you that you don't want to miss their stuff. Maybe it'll be Ricky Saints. I don't know, we'll see how that goes. I'm a big fan of that guy, so but again, I just want it to be real. Jacob Fatu is an absolute monster, but I never, after seeing him so many times at indie shows and at the Nerd and things like that, almost killing the promoter of the wrestling match that night, I didn't really expect Jacob Fatu to like have this success that he's had on TV, and also doing it while he's just being himself so much. But that's what's just so cool about this is doesn't feel like a fake gimmick. It just feels like it's him being him.
Straighten me out. I thought he was on SmackDown. Did they move him to NXT?
No. I was saying, no, I apologize. I was saying that there's nobody on the NXT roster that makes me feel that way. And
gotcha.
He's a newer guy, right? Like, he hasn't been around for that long. He could hypothetically qualify to be an NXT wrestler for how short of time he's been here. But I'm just saying, like, they knew what a star he was, obviously.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because they put the mic in his hand the way they did. They knew that because they didn't just make him be like a silent heater. He is this guy that they're like, oh yeah, wait till you hear this. Here you go.
Yeah.
Do your thing. And he's like, yeah, I mean, like, they're just, it's amazing. And I love it. There's just not anybody, my point being, on NXT that does that for me. And it's more about developing the guys anyway. It's more about making them into WWE superstars. I don't know.
They don't have an excuse anymore because they started Evolve. So they need to be, on the dot now.
Right.
Otherwise you go to Evolve.
Yeah. Get out of here. Speaking of the other shows that they're doing that we don't have time to watch, Legends and Future Greats, Josh, is amazing. It's just a stupid name. And the LFG, let's fucking go. I don't.
Oh, good point.
Just give me something else. Like, I just don't know why it had to be like that. But the content of that program is very good, and people should watch it.
I haven't seen any.
Very enjoyable. It's just funny, and it's good because it's real. Like, it's a reality show, but it's not them trying to be a reality show. You can very much get the vibe that they are just like capturing what these coaches, what Undertaker and Bully Ray and these people are doing, and the mix of the guys that they have doing it is great. Like Mickey James is on there. Like they're they picked good people to be a part of it, good legends, like charismatic people that are fun to watch, but also people that are hard as shit on these rookies and have no problem like really running them through the ringer when it comes to like, are you really cut out for this kind of, which that's what like all wrestling training is trying to see if you're cut out for this, which 95% of the people trying aren't.
That reminds me of that old show Tough Enough. Is it similar to that?
Yeah, similar to that, just with less game show, because Tough Enough had like judges, and then they would judge them, and people got voted off and things like that at one point. Then they also had it be kind of a little bit more of a fake reality show that was happening on Raw, and then Bryan Danielson choked Justin Roberts with a tie one time.
That was the origin. That was the origin of NXT, which was meant to be like the evolution of Tough Enough, and now this is like sort of a.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was NXT at the time. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep.
Well,
it all blends together.
Enough WWE talk. Unless you have anything else before we move on to AEW.
No. I was hoping we could maybe try and do like a speed run of, hey, we got AEW Revolution coming up right around the corner. Maybe we could do just a quick little preview / predictions of what's going on that card.
It's a stacked card. It is a stacked card.
Can't wait.
They always are. AEW always has stacked cards. Like I tried to like put these matches in like some sort of order of like significance, but I'm like, all these matches are pretty damn significant, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought they've done a great job with the MJF Hangman build. That's been great. Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher, like all this feels very personal. Like this particular pay-per-view feels like all these matches are like people that want to kill the other person that they're wrestling.
Across the board, you know, I mean, the ones where that doesn't exist, there's at least a title on the line. But yes, exactly what you said. MJF and Hangman, Ospreay and Fletcher, Swerve and Ricochet, going on down the line, Takeshita, Kenny Omega, Tony Storm, Mariah May, Mox and Cope. Like those are all like just really heated blood feuds at this point. They've done a really good job of building up all of those matches. The one thing is like, you know, even when AEW hasn't done a good job of building things up, the pay-per-views still seem to deliver. You know, they're just banger matches one after the other, and they do it PWG style where they don't necessarily have to build up to a moment. They could start on fire and just stay on fire for the whole show. And as a wrestling fan, I'm there for it.
I think they also do a good job of, once again, like when you look at this card, look at how many stars they've kind of built, or, you know, like some of these guys that kind of were discarded, that now they've found a way to make them into top guys once again. You know, you look at John Moxley and where he could have been at in WWE, and you never know. You have, you know, they were already doing the farewell tour there with Cope. Right. So it's like those two guys now are fighting for the championship on this promotion. It doesn't feel like the WCW days of just old guys doing it.
Yeah.
It's like these guys are in their prime. These guys are in their prime, and they were top guys at WWE. You can't say either one of them weren't. Dean Ambrose in WWE was the guy with the microphone in his hand at all times, you know, and those whole Shield backstage promos and even everything he did after that was all electric, right? Like he proved that he was that same kid that confronted Mick Foley one day on a viral clip that was planned, that we all were like, whoa, who is this guy? Right. Like, but yeah, I mean, besides that, you could talk about some of the people that weren't going to be this in the WWE, a Tony Storm, a Ricochet. These guys came over here and have done an excellent job at reinventing themselves first, and second, proving how wrong WWE was not to let them have a chance to be more than they were kind of holding them to.
Yeah, there's talking about the main event too. Like you mentioned, Tony Storm. I mean, I got my Tony hat on right now. I don't know if you can see, but I don't know what the main event is going to be. You know, whether it's going to be Tony versus Mariah or Cope and Mox. But boy, I think, like, to me personally, the story of AEW is easily Timeless Tony versus Mariah May, and they've just been like, it's just such a good story. I don't know where it's going to go from here, but I mean, I don't even know there's too many good things to say about it. It's just so good, and I can't wait to see how that all culminates on Sunday.
Can I tell you the story, Josh, about how I had dinner with essentially the Hurt Syndicate backstage at AEW here in Phoenix? Is that appropriate time to tell that story?
It sounds like the right time.
Yeah, this was recent. This was at their show a few weeks ago here in town. They had it at, Josh, what you would know as maybe Comerica or Dodge Theater.
That's what I remember it being, Comerica Theater. They're using interesting venues for AEW. I'll say that much.
It worked because of the way their stage setup is, and when you were sitting there, you kind of just felt like you were sitting off to the side of a normal, just maybe a little smaller venue kind of show, but it worked. I have to preface this by saying that I was trying to avoid drinking some very expensive beers at the show, so I stopped in for happy hour at Seamus McCaffrey's and tied a few on. My plan was to just maybe sober up a little while I watched Dynamite and Collision. Instead, one of our friends, who was very kind, very happy that we were able to get him a ticket, decided to pay us back by buying drinks, something I wasn't planning, to the point where I was going to slow roll an 805 the whole night. And at one point, he decided to just go buy another round. So I was two-fisting two 805 tall boys and feeling good. Then, of course, because Mega Ran is who is Mega Ran, we found ourselves very quickly backstage based on an invitation from Shelton Benjamin. And I just want to take a moment to say how kind, you probably don't want this, but how kind and welcoming the Hurt Syndicate was. In fact, demanding that I ate dinner with them in catering, at which point I sat at a table with them, Mega Ran, and Shane Taylor, and for obvious reasons felt very out of place. However, enjoyed myself and the wonderful banter of these fine, large gentlemen. But yes, I will say that the one thing that I found to be amazing is I do work a small wrestling show here, and it's incredible to see something the size of that's weekly television show, live, traveling, all that stuff, and to just still get the same vibe as the small wrestling show that, you know, that I'm a part of. People are backstage, they're planning their stuff, they're talking, you know, everybody was very kind, everybody was very nice. I got to see Adam Cole and a few other people I know, and it was amazing time backstage. However, I prefaced this story with the part about drinking because I just want to say how much I was just trying to hold everything together. Basically, I was just trying to not allow other people to know how drunk I actually was while wandering around backstage. In fact, I think when I first walked backstage, I had an 805 in my hand, and I was like, hey, this probably isn't a good look. Let me throw that away real fast. However, great time. And possibly my favorite person that I talked to was MJF. He is a delight. So I just want to throw that out there. But none of that helps them storyline wise. None of them want to know that they're nice guys because they're very bad guys. They're bad. The topics we discussed were not good topics, Josh. They were not topics I want to talk about in front of my daughter or in front of these people on this podcast, but they were hilarious. I just want to say MJF though, and Adam Page, the two biggest stars, right? Like in AEW, essentially. Like you could argue a lot of things about a lot of people, but when you talk about guys that were probably relatively unknown to everybody outside of the indie wrestling world that became huge stars, it's these two boys.
Biggest homegrown stars. Yep, for sure.
Yeah, right.
Those are the day ones. Yeah, I'm really excited for that match, and I think it's going to catapult both of them to the next level. I feel like this is the path to redemption for this Dark Hangman that we've been seeing for a while now. I guess that's if he wins, but I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I'm really excited to see where that goes.
Well, we got we've gone on for long enough, but we'll definitely cover Revolution after that happens. We got the Queen of the Ring movie out this week, which again, talking about Tony Storm and Mariah May, they took their rivalry to the premiere of that movie.
Yeah.
Fun that they had that little smash, but
I'm excited to check that movie out. I never heard of it, and then like a month and a half ago, it just started popping up on my Instagram feed, and I'm like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
But yeah, it sounds really interesting. Tells the story of Mildred Burke. It's got a 72% on Rotten Tomatoes so far, so overall good.
I love a good wrestling movie.
Yeah, Tony Storm plays a role in this. Naomi and Britt Baker also apparently make appearances in the movie. Charlotte and Liv Morgan originally were supposed to be involved in this, but
interesting
due to scheduling on Charlotte's part and injury on Liv Morgan's part, it just never really worked out. So it's interesting to see how these things come together.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we got a lot of stuff coming up. We got Roadblock next week. We got WrestleMania next month. Dave's already there. He's waiting for us.
Yep, come on over.
Yeah, he can't wait. You have to be Circa. I can tell you're at Circa. Tell Derek I said hey and I miss him. Revolution this weekend, and then Dynasty on April 6th. So much good wrestling to be seen. But we got to do what we do, Josh, before we get out of here. Let's pick some winners of the week. I'll let you go first, Mr. Founder and Proprietor.
Oh my goodness. My gut is to just go with the obvious of, the big heel turn. But I'm actually going to call out CM Punk from a personal basis. CM Punk
that promo.
Yeah, man. Like he has won me over as the babyface hero, the guy who I lost my voice multiple times, like when we were in Dallas, seeing him there, running through the streets of Dallas with my brother, shouting "best in the world." Actually, I think I did that in New Orleans too. I did that in multiple places.
You also chanted Gable, or Jordan,
yeah,
Jordan.
Long time listeners will know. But like, I don't know. I was a huge CM Punk fan. His time in AEW, I was excited at first, and over time, it definitely made me sour on him. And maybe it was just a matter of circumstance. And it just, we talked about guys going back and forth. The AEW scene just didn't seem like it was the right fit for him in the end. And coming back to WWE, the run that he's had, I've been like, he's there. It's fine. I get it. I understand why he's getting pushed, all that jazz. But everything he's done lately, it gets me excited. I want to see him do all the things he does, both, on the mic as well as, in the ring and now outside of the ring, fighting Seth Rollins, like they're Peter Griffin and the chicken on Family Guy.
That was my favorite part of that fight, by the way. The seeing each other as he was going out and just going back at it again. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I also loved like little things that CM Punk does, where he had that conversation with Cody about the soul thing, right? Everybody else had kind of like whatever. Everything else felt very much like a wrestling thing. The way he approached it, the just how natural he is, where he was just like, you want your soul? Like it's just so funny, and he's so naturally good at this. Like it just seems like you're right. It's like he's one of those guys that I always want to see what he does. I'm never going to skip a CM Punk promo or even a match. And yeah, he's honestly, he ate some crow. He matured. He grew up a little bit, and he understands where he wants to be and how he wants to be doing this. And that's it. And I mean, honestly, considering how controversial his AEW run was, you got to give him credit for being able to just get past all of that and get back to doing this again at an elite level for the WWE and not really missing a beat.
There it is.
He's my guy again, man.
Yeah, for sure. Dave, who's your winner of the week?
Dude, it's so difficult to choose, right? Because there's so many cool things happening. But I think I'm going to kind of something that's been overlooked from the pay-per-view, obviously with the Cena heel turn. I'm going to give it to KO Sammy, man, and Randy.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like
great.
Yeah, they just tore it down, and I understand why it's a bit overlooked, because how can you overlook Cena, right? But
it's because Sammy and KO do this all the time, and they're destined to do this forever. And so the problem is that they always are good and they always kill each other, and it's always personal. It's always a blood feud. It's always this. And they do this so well. They've done it since he was El Generico and he was called Steen. And it's just magic, but it's magic that we've seen over and over again. It's like a classic, right? It's like the lady like getting cut in half. You're like, yeah, it's good, but I've seen this so many. I mean, that was good. The box is good. It looked real. Like, yeah, great. I've seen this so many times, though. It's hard to really give it the credit that it deserves, considering how many times you've seen it. You know, so
right.
But yeah, it definitely deserves its flowers for sure.
And Randy's back.
And Randy's back. And Randy's back. Old man Randy is the best version of Randy. The Randy that loves to hear them say his weight, where he's like, 278 pounds. He's like, yeah. That's my favorite Randy.
That guy's a monster.
I know. I love him so much.
He's actually scary.
He is. He's a legitimate badass, right? But I will give it, of course, my winner of the week to the heel turn. John Cena, Super Soldier Cena, the guy that doesn't care, Mr. Make-A-Wish. I literally met John Cena granting a Make-A-Wish thing here in Phoenix one time, a very long time ago. And it's just hilarious that that's the reason why I met him and that now he's this fuck them kids guy. I love it. It's what we waited for a very long time. We knew how impactful it could be. And it was brilliant. I mean, it's perfect. It's perfect. So I saw stuff that would said that The Rock really did want to work with Cody. Like he wanted Cody behind the scenes to be the one that turned heel. And everybody was just like, nah, this isn't the right time for that. That would have brought so much crashing down. You know, it really would have. Like, I don't think that Cody turning heel would have nearly had the impact that John Cena doing it did. And people would have just been like, kind of feel like my, devotion to this whole thing over the last year and getting behind your story and everything was, a waste, right? Like they did too much. They made Cody that guy. He is that guy. He is the handing his belt off to kids, taking pictures, staying, as we've seen Josh, staying till the end of the night to make sure everybody gets a picture ringside. That guy is the man. And they made the right call. It's awesome. And the world is talking about it for good reason. So, but that's it. That's all we got, guys. Dave, I appreciate you bringing Homelander on the show. I appreciate you joining us for sure. We're going to have you back.
Anytime, man.
Drink plenty of water out there in Vegas because it is not. They're just going to get you pina coladas and tequila sunrises and stuff. So drink some water. Where can they find you at? Are you on social media anywhere?
I am. Yeah. I've cut a lot of it. I am on Blue Sky though. As what am I on Blue Sky? It's a Buck Dave, BUCK DAVE BSKY.social.
All the rest of that stuff. We're not doing the BSKY.com or anything.
Yeah, my bad.
Blue Sky, you need to simplify that shit. Make it easier on us.
No kidding,
Josh, obviously, he is at Schlag. Of course, I am at Cap_caveman with a K, but all roads do lead to at the Steel Cage on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. We appreciate you guys so much for coming by. We thank you mostly for investing your time and fandom into John Cena just for him to hurt your feelings. And wrestling has been very good hands right now. So things are good. We're excited and can't wait for WrestleMania season. So I can't wait to see Josh at a wrestling event again. That's the thing I'm most excited about. So we're going to get so drunk. But anyway, we got time for
jealous.
That. Anyway. Well, we appreciate your time. We thank you guys for joining us. We will be back again when something incredible happens, because that's how we do this podcast lately. But make sure to follow us on all these social medias. And again, we thank you for stopping by. We'll see you next time. And remember, kids, wrestling is fun, but man, it's so much more fun right now than it's ever been.